Welcome, everyone, to Catholic Sunday Scriptures in Context. This is a ministry of the Augustinian Order and St. Paul and St. Augustine Parish in Philadelphia. Today we focus on the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time, and we're back to the Gospel of Mark after 5 weeks of the Gospel of John. And our first reading comes from the book of Deuteronomy, and Deuteronomy was the last of the 5 books of the Pentateuch that was written, and we're not really sure the origin of the book. It claims, some claim, or it was claimed at the time it was discovered, that it was the lost book buried in the temple, and somebody found it. And it dates back to Moses, but it obviously doesn't date back to Moses. And the main purpose of this reading that we have today is to praise the laws, the statutes and the decrees that Moses enjoins upon the people. And Moses claims that other nations will admire the laws of the Jewish people because the laws focus on justice and therefore the wisdom and intelligence of those who observe them. And what's different about the Jewish laws, in a sense, is that there are moral instructions. Many of the ancient laws, especially like the Babylonians and the other people, if this happens, then this. But for the Jewish people, thou shalt not kill. It's a moral command, and it's what distinguished Jewish law from the rest. And so here, observe them carefully, and thus you will give evidence of your wisdom and intelligence to the nations. What great nation has statutes and decrees that are as just as this whole law? So again, justice is the main focus of the laws. Now we've finished with Paul's letter to the Ephesians, and now we start the letter to James. And this seems to have been written by a Jewish Christian to Gentile Christians. It's been attributed to James, but it's what they call one of the Catholic epistles. It wasn't directed to any one particular community, like the Corinthians or the Ephesians, but to Christians in general. And the first fruits was a term. The first fruits were the part of the harvest that was dedicated to God in thanksgiving for that. And the people now are the first fruits, and they must dedicate themselves to God. And the way you do that is by putting your faith into practice. And the way to best put it into practice is to help the poor. And the 2 poorest of the ancient times were the widows, because they had no husbands to support them, because only husbands could work, and the orphans who had no parents. So they were thoroughly dependent on the community. And here those words are. Humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls. Be doers of the word, not hearers only. And the focus on orphans and widows. And as we pick up our Gospel of Mark again, there's an encounter between the Pharisees, who were like the sort of lawyers, and the scribes, who were dedicated to the law. And they created other precepts or laws to hem in the real laws. And sometimes there were logical extensions of this. The one that's mentioned in today's gospel is washing of hands before you eat. That wasn't ever part of the law, but it was sort of a common sense thing. But Jesus is chiding them because they treat that minor law as important as all the other laws. And for Jesus, the essence of the law is that it's about love of God and love of neighbor. And if your heart does not love God and neighbor, that's why he uses this part about no matter what you put inside your body, it goes out. But if your heart's not in love with God, nothing else matters. So here, you disregard God's commandments, but cling to human tradition, that they have lost their priorities. Please pray for peace, and if you think this is helpful to someone, please pass it on. Thank you very much.